I'm going to close that down. Okay, so afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the session on changes in training. So my name is Karen Notaro. I'm currently County Training Manager in Greater London North East, but soon, or actually I have actually now started a new role, which is one of two Assistant Regional Commissioners for training in London. So myself and Matt will be helping take training forward across the region. So I'm going to, hopefully, you have to bear with me because I'm not completely au fait with Zoom. I prefer to use MS Teams. So I'm going to try and share my slides with you. Slideshow beginning. Hopefully you will all be able to see that.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you for letting me know that. Okay, so actually a little bit from you. Now I know this does say in the chat, but obviously whilst I'm sharing my screen, I can't actually see the chat, so feel free. I'd be really interested to sort of hear your thoughts on one thing that you like about the training provision in London region and one thing that you would like to see changed.
Karen?
Yes.
I'm not saying anything because I don't know what the London region training provision is. Does that include our county?
It does, yes. So London, obviously it's all of the 5 counties, so Greater London North East, Greater London North, Middlesex West, etc.
Yeah, okay.
Let's see some.
Yeah, I would agree, it's free. That's a good thing.
Yeah, it's free, it's inclusive. Yes, there's quite a few comments around it being free. Yeah, lots of things around it being free. So that's certainly something we will continue to do. So to change, so the ability to do multiple changes to a PLP on Compass. Oh, wouldn't we all love that one? That's definitely on my to-do list to try and get headquarters to sort, because having to go into each module individually is very time consuming and laborious. So I completely agree with that one. Okay, County excels at the provision of training through all streams. Excellent news. So centralised training, especially while we're doing things remotely, so greater flexibility in attending a range of dates. Yeah, so that's certainly something that we are looking at, is actually getting all counties to share dates and links to training on the different websites. Need more training for executives, or that's certainly something that we can arrange. Okay, it's being structured and it's free. Interface with Compass, automatic assignment would be good. Okay, we can look at that. The fact that it's online, excellent. Needs to be more joined up across the region. Yeah, completely agree with that. That is something that we are definitely looking at, how we can kind of be more joined up and kind of blur the lines a little bit between the different counties. Yeah. And that is a good thing. So any training session can be done across the region and it still gets signed off. Yeah, because we're trying to sort of standardise the training, so that's good news. Yeah, the training guide that Matt has produced is brilliant and makes leaders' engagement so much better. Yeah, I must admit, I've just seen those guides that Matt's done, and I must admit they are brilliant. And certainly one of the first things that we're going to look at in our sort of joint role is making those available across the piece. South London's online modules are excellent, good. Like to know more about the provision outside of the county. Okay, so I'd be interested to know, Dawn, what county you're in, and we can certainly talk about that. Messages from Compass to form a training search. Okay, we can certainly have a look at that. Fabulous to have to remote the training on Zoom, as you can muscle in on another county sessions. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've been running online sessions in GLNE, and we've had people in the last couple of weeks from Scotland and from Wales and from Essex and from Sussex. So, you know, training it has, you know, we've got people coming from up and down the country. Needs to be advertised more, okay, rather than go looking. People are lazy, so forget to look. Yeah. Or busy and can't look. So yeah, we need to do more to advertise it. Agree with that. So we'll be sharing the training guides across all of the training teams soon, Matt. Compass not picking up on previous roles. Yeah, that's really, really irritating. So you have to go in and sort of revalidate them again. I've got some more people in the waiting room, so I'm just going to try and admit all of those people. Hopefully they're coming in. And when running reports like safety and safeguarding, when those roles have been closed for a while, yeah, there are quite a few irritations with Compass. Let's just say it like that. Okay, well, that's all really interesting stuff. Thank you for taking the time to sort of share that. And because obviously the chat will be available, myself and Matt will sort of take a look at that and see what we can start either continuing or continue to do across the region. So what we're going to be covering in today's sort of short session then is changes to getting started training. I'd like to have a little bit of a conversation, or we can just use the chat again, about virtual versus face-to-face. So there has been some comments around people liking the fact that the training is being done online, but you know, is there anything else that we can sort of be thinking about? The importance of Wood Badge and ongoing learning taking place, particularly on time. And then an overview of mutually agreed restrictions and when they may be used in regards to training, because there's going to be some sort of changes coming into place around sort of September this year. And then I've scheduled in some time so that we can have a little bit of a question and answer at the end. Okay, so in terms of changes in getting started training then, so a bit of an overview to kind of begin with before we sort of go through sort of role specific changes. So safety and safeguarding training is now to be completed as part of getting started training for a number of roles and must be within the first 5 months of the role start date on Compass. There's a new version of essential information, which includes the changes in scouting, so that's module 6, and it also has a built-in assessment and the generation of a certificate that can be used to confirm validation. For Paul's note around the comment around executive training, there is a new trustee training, so that's trustee introduction, which has replaced module 1EX, which was the module 1 for executives, and as with essential information, this includes the generation of a certificate for validation. So in terms of role specific then, so anybody that was in post in a particular role before the 15th of September 2020, this is section leaders, line managers and district and county teams. In the first 5 months, they had to complete module 1, module 2, so the personal learning plan, module 3 or 4, that's tools for the job, obviously depending upon which role they had. For section leaders, module 3, for line managers, module 4, GDPR, Wood Badge and first aid is required, and then the mandatory ongoing learning for those roles was that safety and safeguarding and first aid renewed every 5 years. After September, I'm just admitting another person, all of that plus safety and safeguarding also has to be completed within the first 5 months, and then ongoing learning for those roles has moved from 5 years to 3. So there's a little note there around trustee introduction with a little asterisk, and that's obviously for people with ex officio roles, i.e. commissioners or group scout leaders. Section assistants, so the slight changes for those is obviously now, as well as having to do module 1 and module 3, GDPR and the safety and safeguarding. They also now have to do the safety and safeguarding within the first 5 months, and it has to be renewed every 3 years, and that's pretty much the same on all of the roles. So from a governance perspective then, Chair, Secretary and Treasurer complete safety and safeguarding training every 5 years. That will now change to 3, but they are the only roles on an executive that have to do those training. For those section leaders that opt into being on an executive after the 15th of September, they will need to complete the trustee introduction. If they've already completed module 1 EX, then they don't have to do the trustee introduction, but it is strongly recommended that they do complete it so that they can support other members of the exec and to be updated with current policy. Support roles. So support roles in Scouting then are administrators, advisors, chaplains, skills instructors, badge secretaries, camp wardens, assessors and event unit leaders. So before September, they, in the first 5 months, had to complete module 1, GDPR. For admin and skills instructors, they also had to complete safety and safeguarding every 5 years. For assessors, they had to also complete module 25, and event unit leaders had to complete module 10. Post September, then again, everybody has to do within those roles module 1, GDPR, safety, safeguarding, renew that every 3 years, plus assessors still have to do module 25, and event unit leaders have to do module 10. So some good news. You know, a lot of that is a lot more training that has to be done. So for people that are presidents and vice presidents, pre-September, they had to complete module 1 and GDPR, but the decision has now been taken that those people in those roles that came in after the 15th of September no longer have to do any training. And so then subcommittee roles. So this is things like finance subcommittees, award advisories committees, and people that are supporters. So initially, before September, no training was required, but for those people in post after the 15th of September, they now have to complete module 1, GDPR, safety, safeguarding, and then have to renew the safety and safeguarding every 3 years. So, you know, obviously there is quite a lot of transition work that actually needs to be done. So existing members that have other roles on campus, the renewal dates for the mandatory ongoing learning will be that is already showing. For those where the training was not a requirement but now is, those people will need to complete the training by the 30th of September this year. If for some reason headquarters decide to bring a training date forward on someone's campus, then that person will be notified via email. If that person doesn't have an email on campus, then their line manager will be contacted via email to make sure that they're aware that the date's changed and they are required to renew it. And if the date has already passed, then people should complete the necessary training again before the 30th of September. So what we're really asking people to do here is to check campus records and contact those that need to complete the training as soon as possible by providing them the current links, but also to ensure compliance by the 30th of September. Any questions about any of that before I move on at all? Going to have a quick look at the chat.
One lady put her hand up, Karen.
Oh, thank you. Is it Irina? I think it's got a hand up. Oh, yeah. Do you?
Yes, great. Could you please remind or repeat who are the members or in support roles who need the training? Who are that went too fast?
Support roles are section assistants.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
if you look at table B and the Excel version, table 2 and the Excel version of it, it's very easy to sort out the various roles.
Correct. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, so I think the table 2 that you're referring to there is on the training site on Compass, and it sort of shows you each role and then the training against it, what they're required to do.
And in the POR section.
Thanks very much, Paul. So Tracy, your question: if someone joined before September 2020 but hasn't yet done any training, they now need to complete the new training. Is that right? So if they joined before September and their role is on Compass before September, then they'll just need to do the existing training. However, for the sake of completeness, I would suggest that they would do the safety and safeguarding at the same time. I mean, those 5 months have passed, so that they do need to sort of get that training done as soon as possible. So the chair, secretary and treasurer have to do safety and safeguarding training. Everybody has to do the exec training. So whether that's the trustee introduction or the original 1EX if they joined before September 2020. Hi, Jane, I hope that answers your question. Okay, and a question about a training unit on the development of scouting over the years. So I think the only unit that I can think of that refers to that, Irina, is the section changes in scouting, and that's how sort of scouting has moved on. That module now no longer exists. That's been discontinued, and that's now been incorporated in the new e-learning for module 1, essential information. Okay, John, I will have to go back and check that, but the information that I read on the Scouts website when I pulled together this training is that it's only the chair, treasurer and secretary that has to do safety and safeguarding, but I will definitely double check on that one.
I think you need to, Karen, because it also talks about members of the subcommittees having to do it. Okay, I will definitely double check that one and come back, but thank you for raising. It's possible I might misread something on the site. Okay, thank you for those questions. We will now move on. So I'd like us to have a bit of a discussion if possible. I mean, obviously with the way that we are all having to sort of scout at the moment, a lot of things is being done virtually and we're having to put to one side kind of face to face. And I know quite a few people are running virtual training. Obviously that does give us more opportunity to provide training that meets people's needs. There's less traveling time, but it still does provide an opportunity to network. However, you know, some face-to-face modules can only still be run in a classroom sort of style environment. You know, it wouldn't really be possible to demonstrate putting up a tent or lighting a fire in your spare room. You could, but you might sort of set up a few sort of smoke alarms. And actually for some people, face-to-face is still their kind of preferred learning style. So I'd just like to sort of get a little bit of your insight on that, please, if you're happy to share it, and so feel free just to take yourself off mute if you prefer.
I think I prefer the online style just because as a mum with 3 kids and life's busy enough as it is, doing something where I haven't got to spend an hour travelling here, there and everywhere or more, it just suits me better. But I do also, given that I'm quite a chatty person, I do like to meet people. So I can see the pros and cons of both, really.
Thanks for that, Tracy.
Karen, it's John here. Just to link the two, virtual and face-to-face, and ask a question about the new first aid. Because obviously you've got your practical bit that follows on from the virtual bit. But when you're looking at mandatory ongoing learning, does someone have to have done both to have actually you know, for it to be ticked off? And if so, because of the practical situation, we're going to end up with a lot of people on that list still, aren't we?
Yes, so it has actually been split into 4 parts. So parts 1, 3 and 4 can actually be delivered online. Part 2 is the one part that has to be delivered face to face, and that obviously at the moment it's not possible to do. So I mean, we are sort of looking at what provision we've kind of got across the board, people that we can sort of ask to help us run the last part of the kind of face-to-face once we're able to do so, because it can't be signed off until all parts have been done and the certificate has actually been given. So yes, it will cause a little bit of a backlog. We are conscious of that, and we are looking at, you know, how many trainers have we got across the board, and you know, and how we can actually then roll out to ensure that everybody gets the training done. I know if people check their Compass, those people where it was due to expire, it has automatically been extended just to give a little bit of a grace period. But you know, it is very much something that we're actually working towards.
Karen,
Thanks,
if you look on Compass, I think they put 2 sections now. So you can add to Compass that they've done the practical or done the theory and then do the practical later.
Thank you, Paul. Yes, they have, but I mean, the whole thing itself can't be signed off, and therefore Wood Badge can't be approved until all 4 parts are done. But yes, you're quite right. They have added the 2 parts in. Okay, so
Karen,
if anyone has
done,
I've just seen a comment about doing first aid course at work. You can use that as the first aid training, because the minimum that's normally run in scouting is first response, and first aid at work is actually above that. So if you've actually got the certificate for that, then that actually can be used to validate. Okay, so we've got some comments around sort of mixtures of training. Some people preferring it online because they don't want to spend ages traveling. Yeah, that can be really useful. I completely agree, Donna, that there absolutely is room for both. So, you know, some lends itself well to virtual, and the more virtual we offer, the more modern the training looks. Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, some has to be face to face. Yeah,
I think some of the
modules 10A, 10B. Sorry, please.
No, because I think one of the other benefits as well is the you're potentially pulling from people with experience from wider areas.
Mm-hmm.
It can be a benefit in the networking with the online.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, I know some of the sessions that I've run, you know, you really hear a lot of things. And I did some manager training last year. And the way I did it, we ended up as a little bit of a cohort of people, and so you know that cohort can now go out and continue to support each other. So yeah, that's a really good point.
Karen, just another thing, I mean, looking forward, obviously at some point we're going to go back to some sort of new normal, but I think it's important. I think we've learned a lot of new skills over lockdown. I think we've learned a lot of new ways of doing training, and I think it would be great to sort of be able to, you know, still use the best bits that we've learned in lockdown, sort of going forward.
Yeah, completely agree with that, John. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, I see it very much as a blended approach. So, you know, using the ones that like module 11, module 13, very much can be done online with no need to run them face to face. And, you know, and it's all about increasing the opportunities for people to be able to complete their learning, but also to complete their validation. So, yeah, I think very much a blended is going to be the way to kind of.
We've had a lot of really good feedback on the quality of stuff that's coming out on Zoom from training. So thanks for that.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. That's really good to know.
I think just flipping it around for a moment. So some of you might know that I'm also a trainer as well. So I delivered one of the sessions this morning. Actually, from a trainer's point of view, and I think you've used the word earlier, haven't you, Karen? The blended really is the key, because as valuable as it is to be able to sit in the comfort of your own home and not have the traveling time, actually from a trainer's perspective, you actually do lose a little bit of the effectiveness, because normally in terms of participation from participants, actually you normally rely so much on body language and all of those sorts of things as well to kind of read the room that you've got, so that you can kind of take a conversation in a direction that it needs to go in. Whereas actually on Zoom or the virtual platforms, you don't have that aspect. So I think that's also one thing that you do lose in terms of that. And then obviously it's much harder to do. As great as some of the breakout room stuff is, it's still not quite the same as having face-to-face training where participants can get together and get to know each other. So I think from a trainer's perspective, you also lose those elements. So yeah, blended is definitely the way to go, I feel.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Matt. And I have to say, I do completely agree. So, you know, sometimes as a trainer, you're right, it is hard to read the room, particularly if people don't have their videos on. You know, it's a trust thing of, are they sitting there? Are they taking it in? Are they learning? Are they actively listening? Or are they doing their shopping list or, you know, searching on Amazon or whatever? But, you know, I mean, the fact that we do have to still then validate the learning afterwards. You know, an individual is coming along because they want to learn, so it's hoped that they do actually actively engage. But you know, some things like practical skills, I mean, I've been running practical skills online, but that, you know, that doesn't beat being done face to face, and that's certainly one that will make that transition back into face to face when we can get back to the old normal or new normal. I'm not quite sure of what the right phrasing is kind of there.
Presumably though, it's still the same model that you're doing an online course, you do the online course, but then your TA is validating that, so that it's not like a course that you're saying, hey, you've done the online course, go and do it. So you've done the online course, now prove to your TA that you can talk through and do the job.
Yep, Stephen, absolutely right. It is, you know, you've done the learning. Yeah, you're right. You do still need to go away to your TA and prove that you are competent in order to get that module signed off. Yeah, that is absolutely right.
I think, Karen, Tony speaking here. If I could just say a couple of things. I deliver some online training, or both face-to-face and online training in my professional life. And we've had to adapt with the times. And one technique we use to avoid people switching off and doing other things is simply just have random call out. So, you know, you look at the people in the room, and I could just pick on the first person I see and ask Liz a question about the subject content. Hello, Liz. And that's, I think, something we stole from another organisation, but it's a very good way, if you throw that in right at the beginning, of keeping people's attention. The convenience of online learning is so much more than the face-to-face, because, you know, during the lunch break today, I've got a huge amount of housework to be getting on with, so I was able to do that and not have to worry about that when I get home. And the reading the room part, that's something that is difficult, but I think with online learning, if you keep the numbers small enough, that you can get everybody on one screen, and I think we've proved today that it's quite practical, and so I'm an advocate for the online learning. And finally, on all of this, the people have said about practical skills, you've only got to look at Wintercamp and have a look at the Wintercamp website and what's going on over there at the moment to see that you can do practical skills online. And we shouldn't shy away from that. I think it's impossible.
Right. Thanks for all of that, Tony. I mean, yeah, I have been running practical skills online, and I've developed a way of, you know, getting people to tie an alpine butterfly knot by the first bit trying to follow some written instructions and then showing to their cameras what they've come up with. Then the second time showing a diagram and see if they can do it. And then the third time actually showing a video of someone tying it, because don't ask me to tie it, but I can show you a video of someone that can. And then, you know, by the end of it, everyone actually knows how to do it. And then they're all asked to come to the session with a skill that they can then teach others. I've had things like, you know, people teaching everybody had to sing happy birthday in Lebanese. We've had quite a few clove hitches. We've had people making hats. One person actually came along and demonstrated how to do VLOOKUP on Excel by sharing their screen. So, you know, and that really sort of surprised me. So I agree that we can make it work, but just thinking about different learning styles, that's one of the modules that we certainly might want to consider running both ways, and not just one or the other. But all
Hi, Karen.
there.
Hi. I suppose it's Dawn here, sorry. Just a couple of comments and thoughts about what's been said so far. Like Tony, part of my role is delivering training, and part of that is delivering clinical training. So over the past year, we've had to move 99% of our clinical training online. So from a first aid point of view, obviously we've had to, ours is slightly higher than first aid, but we've had to look at different ways of delivering that training and learning and providing it in a bite-sized way. You will never get away from having to deliver and validate elements of training in a face-to-face context, certainly with regard to first aid. None of us across anywhere in the country have worked out how to do that yet in a safe way. So that's not going to happen. It's also not going to happen quickly that we will be back in a position to do that face-to-face safely. We're only just, probably with regard to my ambulance crews, only just back doing face-to-face for essential elements since October. And that's only probably 2% that we've been able to take back face-to-face. Everything is still online apart from that. The other element, which I think is really important and people forget about, is delivering training online is very different to delivering training face-to-face. And not everyone can do it. Not everyone feels comfortable doing it. And it does take learning and skill and development. And actually, I think that's one thing that would be really useful from potentially a regional point of view, is to develop some training about how to deliver training online. Because the way you use your camera, the way you interact with the people on screen, is about engaging, encouraging, getting that participation. And it takes work, and it's a new skill for a lot of us. And just expecting trainers one day or 1 week to do it face-to-face in a classroom, and the next to be able to run all singing, all dancing online sessions, I think is very difficult and doesn't always work. So I think to make the most for both learners and trainers, some development around that would be really good. And also, delivering online training is exhausting. For those of you that do it's knackering. I know face-to-face can be exhausting anyway, but certainly spending all day delivering training on Zoom is, knackering. So that was it. Just a couple of thoughts there.
Dawn, that's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. So really, really good from the kind of clinical and first aid perspective. That's quite helpful because I've got a training, I've got a meeting with our first aid trainers on Tuesday in terms of, how we're thinking about doing that part too. So that's good to sort of bear in mind. And also your thoughts around sort of the almost like train the trainer on how you do online, because you're quite right. It is a new skill. It is hard. And it is thoroughly, I actually find it more exhausting than I do running face-to-face training, because it's that little screen, are people listening, and that sort. So I completely agree with you there, and that's certainly something that Matt and I can look at. Because between us we've got quite a bit of experience, and obviously we can reach out to the county training managers and the people that are delivering training across the region to sort of pick out those best practice and kind of hints and tips. And we're already looking at what technology works. So we've got Zoom and we've got Teams or Google Classrooms or all the various different platforms that can be used to run the training, but how do you make it interactive? So for work, I use AHA slides to enable people to contribute to the presentations and to run quizzes and polls and generate word clouds. You know, you've got Slido for posting questions. Also been using a Miro board, and Miro's pretty good for enabling everybody to collaborate on the same board at the same time. If you can get past the tech issues of people being able to join it, where you know we have been using it for a bit of the training in Greater London North East fairly successfully, but you know, I think there's definitely still some work we can do to kind of improve it there. So yeah, I completely agree, and that's certainly something that we can look at. So thank you, and thank you to
Can I
everybody.
just ask, sorry, can I just ask, I put in the comments about I wasn't aware that First Aid at Work did actually cover off unless you did the paediatric CPR part of it. Can we just get some
certainly
clarity?
didn't. I haven't reviewed the new one that's come out from headquarters, and I'm not going to pass my and my fellow clinical colleagues' opinions on it, but it's certain First Aid at Work certainly didn't used to cover first response unless you did the paediatric. In all honesty, I can't comment at the moment, but I understand a lot has been taken out of first response recently, so it might well.
Yeah, I think it does, and that's why I did say it, because I think it does. Yes.
Yeah, historically it definitely didn't, because you had to get signed off that you'd done a paediatric part of it.
Yeah.
Karen, Karen, just going back to what Dawn was saying before, totally agree that we're looking at sort of different skill set of people delivering training online, but actually what it can do going forward, it may actually give opportunity for people who actually might find it easier to do it online than maybe on the face-to-face. So it may well be an opportunity to, you know, unlock some potential there, you know, around on the training side.
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks,
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that,
John. I was going to say, as well
as
coming back from the
Stephen.
experience of thinking of the training, obviously, I just give you a background. I work in schools, so we had to suddenly get all our teachers from teaching in a classroom to teaching online. And one of the things that happened there was buddying up, getting those who were happy with the technology, getting them buddied up, getting them sharing their skills with others. And I don't know if there's a way of doing that within the training, because obviously there are going to be those who've got more skills. Whether that can be done in training teams.
So that's a really great idea, and I'm actually all one for co-facilitating to help build capability. And actually, if you've got another trainer, it's quite good, because you've got, like you would if you was face to face, you've got someone to bounce off of. So this is all fantastic stuff, and I'm glad it's recorded because I can listen back to it, and Matt and I can have discussion. So thank you very, very much for everybody that's taken the time to either comment in the chat or to unmute and share. I am conscious of time. We have still got a couple of bits to sort of get through, but if we can get through those 2 bits, and then we can pick anything else up in the Q&A session. So thank you. Okay, so moving on then, Wood Badge and ongoing learning. So in terms, I mean, you're all, just from sort of listening to the things that you're saying, you're all very aware of what sort of needs to be done in order for someone to obtain their Wood Badge, but this is sort of really for everybody. So, you know, a lot of impetus is on learners, you know, so they should have a copy of their role description. They should, you know, read the latest module matrix to understand what learning is actually required for their role. They can download a personal learning plan template and actually note down what they think can be validated without training. Meet with a training advisor to discuss and agree the plan for the first 6 months. And then, you know, Wood Badge training and validation must be completed within 3 years of the role start date being recorded on Compass. And then I'm going to talk about Rule 7A in a moment. We've then got obviously ongoing learning. So learners are required to complete an average of 5 hours ongoing learning a year. Safety and safeguarding training are classed as mandatory ongoing learning and must be kept up to date by renewing them before they are due to expire. First aid is a qualification which must be held at the time of gaining a Wood Badge and at appointment renewal. And although it's classes on the Compass as mandatory ongoing learning, when you look at it on the Scout website, it doesn't always necessarily say it's mandatory ongoing learning, but it has to be current at the time of wood badge, and at the time of appointment renewal. So this section 7A of the appointments process in POR. So if the wood badge is not completed within 3 years, then the relevant commissioner, acting together with the AAC under this rule, may actually cancel or not renew any appointments under the grounds that's noted under number 7, which is that the adult has not met the training requirements of the role, the appointee has failed within the time limit satisfactory to complete their training, that's appropriate, they don't hold a current first aid certificate, or they've not met their ongoing training requirements. Now, obviously, that's quite a big thing, and previously AACs and commissioners may have taken the decision to actually suspend someone because they haven't actually completed their training. But actually what can be done, because suspensions really are the last thing that you should do, and this is where mutually agreed restrictions can actually be brought into place. So mutually agreed restrictions are put into place to ensure that suspensions are only used when absolutely necessary. They can't be used in safeguarding cases. That's completely separate. So when thinking about suspension, consider, is it required for the investigation to take place that a leader is actually suspended? They are something that's agreed by the relevant commissioner, the volunteer's line manager, and the volunteer that they are to be applied to. And the way that they are created is to meet with the volunteer and the line manager to discuss what the best course of action is and how long the restrictions will remain in place. And so the maximum that they can be put into place for is 4 weeks. And if the volunteer does not agree, then the only course of action may be suspension. Any restrictions that are put into place should be documented in a letter or an email, specifying what they are and in the period in which that they will be renewed. It should also say that any restrictions are not adhered to, then a suspension may actually end up being put into place. And the restrictions are only active once written confirmation has been sent to the volunteer. So why am I sort of mentioning this is because it's really about how they can be then used in the training process. So, you know, they should be used if a suspension or cancellation of an appointment is being considered under section 7 of the appointments process, or where there is non-compliance of the safety, safeguarding, GDPR or getting started training not having been completed within the first 5 months. So commissioners are being advised to put into place an action plan to allow volunteers to complete their training before September 2021. Except for the non-compliance of safety, safeguarding, GDPR or getting started. So they can actually put mutually agreed restrictions into place immediately in those circumstances. After September, there is going to be an expectation that mutually agreed restrictions will be used to support volunteers to complete their wood badge training before their role is actually ended. Although obviously, you know, commissioners can obviously use their own sort of insight and say, actually, I might put them in place now to support people completing their wood badge before September if they think that that is appropriate. Okay, so we're going to now move on to question and answers. So I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen just so that I can see you all again and look at some of the chat and then open the floor to questions.
Can I ask what mutual restrictions are? Excuse me.
So they are something that is agreed and put into place. So if it's a suspension for or if you're considering suspending someone, so 2 leaders have had an argument, and they might have had a fight, and normally you would consider suspending them both straight away whilst an investigation is actually taking place. But a mutually agreed restriction is they're not actually formally suspended, but they might go and help a different section whilst the investigation is taking place. So that's what they are.
Yeah.
And from a training perspective, is that they might not go to their meeting nights until they've completed their training.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So Jennifer, to answer your question, more details about mutually agreed restrictions process. So if you look on the Scouts website, if you look under trainers, then you'll find within that, or there is a link to it also in Rule 7 in the appointments process part of POR as well. You can, it takes you to a separate window where you can read all the information. And coming back to the points earlier around the training, yes, execs do have to do it all. It is everybody on an exec. For some reason, it was a little bit misleading when that's on the website.
Can I ask personally just about one question for my wood badge? It's a GSL wood badge. The one I've got left is the achieving results, enabling change, those management ones.
Mm-hmm.
I was told they were going to be online, but they were just sorting out, putting it together for an online course. Is that correct?
So which county are you part of, Stephen?
I'm Greater London North East.
So we ran them last year. I ran all 3 dates over October and November. I am running them again. There's one being run March, I think. And then the next one will be
March and one in April.
Thanks, Trish.
Oh, March and April, okay.
So if you look on GLNE training website, you will find the links to the training.
Okay, right. Thank you very much. Because I was booked originally to do the in-person residential one, which obviously was then cancelled, and I didn't pick up any links. So thank you for that.
Yeah, that's okay. I piloted it last year just to see how it sort of worked, and then decided to roll it out again.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
I knew Pete Hayward in our district had done it in the pilot, and we've just seen what happened to it. Yeah, thanks.
Sure, no problem at all.
Can I just ask a question? Sorry, it's freezing.
Of course.
I'll put my video back on. Quite dark here. I've got some leaders that I'm training advisor to from different groups. And so they've all done the very straightforward online modules, done all that, we've talked about it. That's very easy to validate by talking it through. It's the practical elements that I'm now struggling with. And particularly how we evidence that, and apart from jumping on Zooms, but some groups aren't doing Zoom. So I think that's where we need to balance things out, and that's where I'm struggling with a bit. I'm sure Alice and Judy will jump in, but it's just an idea of how can we move this forwards, because obviously we do need to get these people through their wood badge within their 3 years, maybe 4 because of the slippage, but you know, how do we do that? And I am a little bit, I like to see the practical element, because working with young people is very different to doing it on Zoom sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, a couple of suggestions could be that the learner invites you to come along as an observer to one of the sessions that they're actually running, and you just sit in the background to watch how they interact with the young people. Alternatively, they could record a video. If you think about how things can be validated, it can be run, it can be done through written testimony, video testimony, you know, that something could be videoed and actually sent to you. So there's a couple of sort of,
I'm trying to think about at the moment when we don't have face-to-face scouting, really, and how we can move forward with that.
Oh, as in, oh, okay. Well, I don't think we're going to be returning to face-to-face for some time, but if we are, it might be that you'd have to be included in their kind of ratio of kind of numbers, and then you've got bubbles and all sorts. So I can't probably answer that now without having sort of going away and sort of thinking about it. But unless anyone else has got any possible suggestions that could sort of be done in those circumstances. But I agree, it is tricky until we return completely back to normal. I think you're going to have to rely on, you know, on online validations, and then actually going and observing as a Zoom.
Yeah. Okay.
Reece, drop me an email with the people you've got, and we'll have a chat about it.
Oh, hi, John. Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
Thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Any other questions? Okay, a link for the training in the chat. Is that a link to the website for the training courses, Angela? Yes, it is. Okay, yeah, sure, no problem. Trish, would you be able to do that? Would you be able to put the GLNE link in it? Amazing, thank you. Because I don't want to stop this screen as I'll blanked out. I'll be able to come back to it again.
You just go to the GLNE website, and training is one of the head things you click on, and they're there straight away. It's really easy to find.
There's a nice big heading on the top of the GLNE website, and it just links to show where the training courses are.
And I know for Greater London North, I think there's our I think we've got their dates on there as well.
The link to their website as well.
We haven't formally approved that we're going to do it. Sorry, I'm an LTM for Greater London North. We haven't approved our manager training. Every county's website says there is manager training happening in March this year, but whether or not that's accurate, I'm not sure about. So
thanks, Louise. So for Greater London North East, it definitely is.
Okay.
It's being run virtually, but yes, we are definitely running it.
I'm not sure about the others because I know some counties have put it on, but they haven't actually put dates, but it's not actually running. They're still trying to get their head around it for Zoom.
Yeah.
So
the interesting thing is, because I'm sitting here clicking on the training now to get the book, and you click on the March one, it comes up as a November date. So slight tweaking needed, but
okay, we will look at that because I thought we fixed that. Any other questions at all? I'm just going to quick look at the chat and see if there's anything else.
It's not a question. How are you dealing with the approvals for safety safeguarding module 1 and such like, where after the 15th of September, the update to Compass knocked out the approvals on all of the approval page for the roles. The roles are still full, but they're not approved. And at some stage, they will use that information to send out reminders about safety and safeguarding, GDPR, which are all actually done, but are not shown on the approval page.
So we have been re-adding information back on where we've got the certificates from people. If we haven't got them, then we're asking them to send them if they can. If not, then they do have to redo them and then resend through the certificates.
So you're asking people to redo modules that they've already had validated and are not validated now because TSA have discontinued the model. Is that really the right way to go?
Most of the roles where it has been discontinued, it has, the ones I've seen anyway, I can only go by on the ones that I've seen, it has gone over. So I haven't actually come across any where it was on there and it hasn't actually dropped off. If that was the case, then I will contact the person and say, have you got a copy of your certificate? But if they haven't, in order to validate it, I'm afraid they do have to do it again. I understand it's frustrating. It doesn't take long to do. The training doesn't take long to do.
I was going to say, as a DC, if I notice someone has dropped off, if I know they've done it and I know it was validated, I've been re-adding it. If we've got no proof, as you say, I've had to ask them to do it again.
Yeah.
It's only a small handful. It's usually where a role change has happened.
I've got to say, it's more than a small handful that I've got, and that could be the way that we were validating modules that's caused the problem. But if the safety and safeguarding was as a result of module 1, then it's no longer approved. Now, they may have done safety and safeguarding as well, and they may have done it, and they have done it, and it's shown in mandatory ongoing learning with a later date in there.
Yeah.
But it doesn't transfer to the approval page from mandatory ongoing learning. It's got to be from the PLP.
But if it is in the mandatory ongoing learning, then you can just use that date that's there to redo it. But if there's nothing then you do have to go out and ask.
Yeah, no, if there's nothing, that's not a problem. It's where it's there and shown, and we're now going to go back and revalidate it. And I just think it's crazy.
I agree. I mean, from a revalidation perspective, if the date's in there for ongoing learning, then the only revalidation is to put the date in. You don't actually have to arrange to meet the individual, unless you've got concerns.
Karen, do you know if they're going to try and fix the compass glitch? Because it's certainly a glitch that you have to. It's crazy that we've got enough things to do without having to keep going back in. I know it's not your problem. I know it's not something you have to do.
But it's certainly something I will escalate, John, because it's a bugbear that someone has got several roles, it's on for one and not for another, or it's dropped off. I mean, I haven't yet, touch wood, because I'm going to find one now, where that's happened. But yeah, I mean, we'll certainly feed it back to headquarters and to get it fixed.
Unfortunately, we are one of the biggest counties, or we have the most districts. We've got 47 groups in my district, and there's goodness knows the same in John's. So if you take an average of 2 people a group, that is a lot of people to do a lot of reval. And it's like the first aid. I validated somebody's first aid. It's 9 clicks for one person. That's a lot of time. If you've only, for one person, it's fine. But if I'm doing 50 people or 100 people or 400 people, that's a lot of clicks for that. And that's why I'm saying, is there not something that they can do, to improve Compass to make it more user friendly? Because it takes a lot of time. Alice and I spend a lot of time, and so do a lot of the other CTMs and LTMs in Bromley and Bexley, spend a lot of time validating, clicking. It takes hours. So, if that could be done, we would appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll certainly take all of that feedback and say, I'm sure they can make improvements to how it's done. And certainly if people have got multiple roles, that an update for one means it goes across the board and less clicks. I'll certainly feed that back. It's unfortunately beyond my control, because if it was, I would have sorted it by now. But I'll certainly feed that back for you. But believe me, I completely hear and understand and agree with your frustrations, having to spend a lot of time on Compass doing that sort of thing myself. So I completely agree. I am conscious it is now 3 o'clock. You have now got a 15-minute break before the last session. Session 4 is due to start at 3:15. So I would like to thank you all for today. I hope it was useful. I certainly thought it was a great conversation, and I didn't just want this to be an hour with me talking at you. I wanted it to be an opportunity where we could sort of do a little bit of collaboration, and certainly with my new kind of role hat on, what I've sort of got to sort of start working with going forward with Matt. So thank you all very, very much, and enjoy the rest of your day, and I will